morning everybody. Finn's joining us this morning. He was asleep underneath the table, but when I got up and started walking around, oh goodness, and here comes Pepper. We might have some interesting additions to our mobility and stretch session this morning. So waiting to see if anybody actually joins us. Here we go, some bubbles come in. So Finn and Pepper are joining in this morning. Oh, Pepper, you can't get on my lap. There we go. We've had a bit of a busy morning in the Sherrin household. We had new lambs the night before last, and one of them we are having to feed. And it's all a bit later than the others that we've had, so anyway, you don't need to hear all of that. So, should we make a start? I don't know whether you'll be pleased to hear, but I'm very pleased to report that my upper back is feeling a lot happier today. So it must be all of that stretching that I did and the mobility work that I did yesterday. So we're going to carry on along that theme and also work on some hip mobility today. So as ever, I'm going to stand up because it's better for me to change my position. I've been sitting at my new desk for this morning, so in between feeding lambs and sorting dogs out. Finn and Pepper are going to obviously stay just at my feet to help me work this through. So we'll start off with rolling our shoulders. You can do this seated if you want to, that's absolutely fine. But if you can stand up and move around as well, then that's also good. So let's just roll those shoulders. And really squeeze those shoulder blades back together. And we're going to do those stick 'em ups again that we did yesterday. Now, one of the reasons, I didn't explain this yesterday, but if I just stand like that, you can see how I cannot rotate my arms through my shoulders so that my arms are straight, they just will not go. And one of the benefits of using a wall to lean against is that it just gives you something to press against and some feedback so you can feel whether you're in the right position or not. So again, I'm going to use the door. So we stand with our bottom touching the flat surface, our shoulder blades and our head. And then we're going to work to get our arms as flat against the surface as we can without letting your back arch. So you do need to work quite hard through your tummy. And then if you can get your wrists flat on the wood surface as well, then brilliant. I can't. And then move your arms up as far as they will go, keeping your elbows, that one drifted off the wall there, keeping your elbows on the wall and your bottom and your head, and don't let your back arch. And then down we go again, and then all the way to the top. Do a bigger move as you can do. That is really good, right in the middle of my shoulder blades. My upper thoracic spine really likes that, but that is quite hard work on my shoulders because you have to be able to rotate your shoulder joint back, and my shoulders are just not very flexible. So we'll continue with that one and we'll do the elephant ears. So we're going to do a slight variation of this one today as well. So standing nice and tall or sitting nice and tall, and just reach down with one elbow towards the floor and then back up to the middle and down to the other side, keeping your elbows back. Keep breathing whilst you're doing these, don't forget that bit, that's really important. And then over to the other side. And again, because the second time is always better. Remember, we're aiming for moving just through the upper thoracic. So we're not stretching through our sides, although actually, this is my favourite. Doing that stretch, you'll feel a stretch all the way down the side of your body, which is a different stretch, but good for other reasons. So whilst we're talking about it, we may as well just do it. And the second time. Now you can hold these stretches for longer. We're working on mobility as well as stretching because we want our joints to move more, particularly the joints that seize up when we end up sitting still. So the emphasis on these sessions is on not necessarily holding the stretch as much. And I'm also thinking that for most of us, we're probably wanting to do these in between doing other things. So they're aimed at giving you some ideas of some movement stuff that you can do in between doing other things regularly throughout the day, rather than allowing a solid block of time to just stretch like you would do in a yoga session, for example. So that's why we're sort of moving on reasonably quickly. But if you want to hold the stretches for longer, then that's also a useful thing to do if you have the time. So we do a slight different variation to the elephant ears today. So back to elbows wide, nice and broad across your chest. And we're also going to rotate. So we're going to do a slightly different twist. Now, as you turn around, aiming to I'm bringing my right elbow towards the camera. I want you to try and keep your hips square onto the camera. So we're not rotating the whole of our body. Again, we're trying to target that upper thoracic region. So we're using our elbows as a pivot point. I don't know what the correct physical term is, but we're trying to keep our hips locked solid, and we're moving round, first of all to the left, keeping our elbows back, and then the other side. Okay, and just shake your arms off. Tactical waggle, as Karen would say. Okay, so what else were we going to do? We've done the side bends. I'm going to do some work on the hips today, as well as the shoulders, because we've missed those out for the last couple of days. The dogs have settled down now. I'm about to disturb them again because I'm going to grab a chair. I won't put it on Finn's head. So we're going to sit on the edge of the chair. Finn's right in the way. I don't know whether you can see him. And Pepper. Pepper's going to come and say hello again now. They are just here with me. So we're going to sit on the edge of the chair so you are not leaning against the back of the chair. Sorry, Pepper. And your feet should be flat on the floor. And then we're going to bring one leg up and rest your ankle onto the top of your thigh. Now, when that happens, what might happen with the rest of your body is you might roll backwards and end up, if I show you from the side, you're sitting on the edge of the chair, and when you bring your ankle up, you might end up sitting like this, and that's what we want to try and avoid. So we don't want to collapse through the spine when we lift our knee up. So what we're working to do is to stay sitting on the bones of your bottom, so you have to stand tall, excuse me, and imagine that someone is pulling you with a rope so that you are stretching through your spine. So we don't want to collapse through your spinal column in order to do the stretch here. So you might find it easier if you push through the foot that's on the floor. So if you can't actually rest your foot, if you can't lift your ankle and rest it on your knee, then even just sitting tall like this and bending forwards helps stretch through your lower back. So you do what you can do. At the moment, I'm aiming to stretch through into the muscles on the outside of your hip. And what we're aiming to do is to push that knee, the bent knee, down towards the floor. And keep breathing whilst we do that. And then we're going to swap over. Again, still sitting nice and tall. Don't collapse into the stretch. Now this is one that we're going to hold a little bit more. We're not necessarily doing the movement on this one. And you should feel it in the outside of your hip. And then because the second time is always better, we're going to do that once more on either side. Keep sitting nice and tall and working to push that knee towards the floor. You do as much as you can do. So you should be able to feel the stretch, but it shouldn't be any sharp pain. And don't push through the pain, but if you can feel the muscles working, that's okay. But there's a difference between hard work and pain. So go as far as you can go. Okay, and then we're going to stretch the front of our hips now, our hip flexor muscles. So we're going to use something to balance. If you can, get hold of your foot. And what you're aiming for on this one, I think I showed you this one day last week. So what we're aiming for is to stand nice and tall, our knees to be together, and we're aiming to get the stretch into this part of your hip here, your hip flexor muscle, which means you have to be able to stretch through the front of the muscles in your thigh. You have to be able to stretch through your quads for that to happen. Now my quads are quite tight, so I have to hold this stretch for a little while before I can feel the stretch move into my hip flexor. So you're aiming for your foot against your bottom, but to keep your back flat, you need to tuck your bottom under and grip your belly in tight, and then pull your knee back. It's quite a common stretch, this one. Often we don't do it particularly well. Okay, and then we're going to swap sides. So we get hold of the top of that foot. And then work on bottom tucked under, belly nice and tight. Pulling that knee back. You can also think about being really broad across your chest. We don't want to be doing this. So we can still work our upper back whilst we're stretching through our quad. And then last one to finish, and I'm going to show you this one using, oh no, I can't show the back of the chair. I'll use the table as normal, otherwise I disappear out of shot. So you need a solid surface to press your hands on. Your legs need to be vertical. Forward bend, so be careful. Do this gradually. If your back, if you've got a bit of a temperamental back, then you can lower your stretch gradually. So if you need to hold here, you'll feel a bit of a stretch down the back of your legs. If you can go a bit lower, then do. But take it to where you can go. So I always think of sticking my bottom backwards and then pushing down through my hands so that I can stretch through my shoulders, trying to keep my arms as straight as possible. And by pushing down into the solid surface, that helps you access this part of your back here and just stretch through that spine again. Another way of increasing the stretch into your lower back and down the backs of your legs is to take it into a full forward bend. So if you do have a bit of a dodgy back, don't do this one. You would stay on a solid surface. But if you can go through into a forward bend, a full forward bend, that's about as flexible, that's about as much as you're going to get from me. But let your head relax. And either hands on the tops of your feet. If you can reach the floor, and think of moving, hello Pepper, all the way up over your bottom. It's not really that useful, Pepper, when you do that. She thinks I'm playing. But you should feel that stretch through the back of your legs and into your back. Okay, you can practice that one when you haven't got a Pepper giving you a kiss. Hopefully that was useful. Let me know how it works. My spine feels a little bit longer and I feel a bit taller now, so that feels quite good, and I feel like I've stretched my hips a little bit. So remember, don't sit for ages in the same position. Try and sit nice and tall with some space across your shoulders so that your shoulders are not hunched and rounded, because that's really bad for you. And keep stretching, keep moving, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.